This is May 7th in Los Angeles, and it's a beautiful day in Los Angeles, 70 degrees. And today we're going to debate value question number 1. Environmental concerns are more important than economic growth. I repeat, environmental concerns are more important than economic growth. For the government, Sol and Gabby, and in the opposition will be Maral and Amanda. Okay, the chair will recognize the leader of the government, the Prime Minister, Sol, for a speech not to exceed 7 minutes in length. And we are rolling.
Hello everybody, my name is Sol and I would like to thank you guys all for being here today.
Hi Sol.
I would like to set the stage by saying that when talking about environmental concerns, we are often far too focused on the present and not enough about the future. A quote by Teddy Roosevelt especially spoke to this issue when he said, "To waste, to destroy our natural resources, to skin and exhaust the land, instead of using it to increase its usefulness, will result in the undermining in the days of our children the very prosperity which we ought by right to hand down to them amplified and developed." What will our children's futures look like if we keep going down this path? What about our grandchildren's? What about your little brother or sisters? The topic that Gabby and I will be discussing today is that environmental concerns are more important than economic growth. This proposition is to be evaluated as a value case, and the definitions we have agreed upon to make this a fair debate are as follows. Environmental concerns are an evaluation of, or an attitude towards facts, one's own behavior, or other behaviors with consequences for the environment. More means to a greater degree, important means having serious meaning or worth, and finally, economic growth can be defined as an increase in a country's productive capacity as measured by comparing gross national product in a year with the GNP in the previous year. The value that serves as a motivation for both sides is human life, and the criteria is quality of life. Whichever side can prove that their resolution will produce a higher quality of life will win the debate. To reiterate, our resolution is that environmental concerns are more important than economic growth. This is not to say that economic growth isn't important, but it is not worth it if it's at the expense of the environment. Our first contention is that we cannot sustain an economy if we are depleting the world's natural resources. We must face the facts. Humanity now consumes at a faster pace than the earth can regenerate, and not only in regards to non-renewable sources such as fossil fuels. And this is largely caused by economic development's exploitation of natural resources. For example, according to a 2010 article from Elsevier, which is a world-leading provider for scientific information, forests are cut faster than they can regrow. 130,000 kilometers squared of forest land has been destroyed per year for the past 15 years. And fish are caught faster than they can restock. 15% of ocean stocks were depleted in the same 15-year period. Not only that, but extraction of natural resources such as biomass, fossil fuels, metal ores, etc. has increased nearly 45% in the past 25 years. If we keep this up, global extraction of natural resources can grow upwards of 50% in the next 15 years. At present, 80% of global primary energy comes from fossil fuels. And let me reiterate, fossil fuels are not a renewable source, since once we are out of them for millions of years until the earth can regenerate them. And water scarcity is another humongous issue. Based on current trends, this same 2010 study determined that humans will use 40% more water over the next 20 years. As is, water scarcity affects 1 in 3 people globally in every continent. And according to a 2012 report by BBC, it takes 2,400 liters of water to produce a single hamburger and 11,000 liters of water to make a pair of jeans. So basically, businesses use far more water than this planet can sustain. And if we keep going down this path, we will eventually leave businesses with no room to even develop. Our second contention is that economic growth oftentimes hinders people's quality of life through contaminated rivers, air pollution, and other natural resources. China is a perfect example of this, as this is a country that has pretty much put economic growth over all else for the past few decades, actually, and an economic rise of roughly 10% annual GDP for the past decade has done far more environmental harm than good. For example, life expectancy in the north has decreased by 5.5 years because of air pollution. And based on a 2012 Asian Development Bank report, less than 1% of China's 500 largest cities meet the World Health Organization's air quality standards. Beijing has even experienced an air apocalypse, which was a prolonged bout of smog that contained 40 times the amount of hazardous particles deemed safe by the World Health Organization. And coal is the main culprit for the degradation of air quality, as in China, coal provides about 70% of their energy needs. Another extremely serious environmental concern in China is the absolute scarcity of water, according to a 2013 study by The Economist. Approximately 2/3 of China's roughly 660 cities do not have enough water, even though China has dammed every major river along the Tibetan Plateau and they control the water supply of neighboring countries. So that you guys get the impact that this has on the quality of life, is that rural Chinese people especially, 300 to 500 million people in China lack access to piped water. And almost 90% of underground water in cities, as well as 70% of China's rivers and lakes are now polluted. So even the little water that they do have is now not even safe to drink or to use. And to understand the even greater impact of this total lack of regard for environmental concerns is that it is causing lives to be lost. According to a global burden of disease study in 2010, air pollution contributed to 1.2 million premature deaths in China. It would be easy to isolate this problem to China, but environmental concerns are affecting the world at a global scale, China just being a more acute example. For the sake of time, I will only go over one more example, which is the Gulf oil spill in 2010. This constituted of the explosion of the Deepwater Horizon oil rig off the Gulf of Mexico. And obviously, this was a catastrophe for both the oil company and the environment, but it also caused concern for human life. Gulf Coast seafood had to be heavily monitored because certain chemicals in oil called polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons are thought to potentially cause cancer in humans. And to clarify, according to an EPA study done in 2008, PAHs are created when products like coal, oil, gas, and garbage are not thoroughly burned. And this report also stated that breathing PAHs and skin contact seem to be associated with cancer in humans, and this has been proven in mice. And a 2010 study done by professors at Oregon State University demonstrated how rises in PAH did indeed occur after the Deepwater Horizon oil spill. And more specifically, prior to the explosion, the measured PAH was 3.8 nanograms per liter, and it peaked after the oil spill at 170 nanograms per liter. So for all of these reasons, you should vote for the affirmative today, that being that environmental concerns are more important than economic growth. I now stand for questioning.
Thank you so much. Could you come forward for cross-examination, please? Stand closer, please. Oh, sorry, Chloe. Okay.
Okay. My first question I'm going to ask, you stated that life expectancy in some regions of China has actually decreased because of air pollution, correct?
Yes.
So do you think air pollution is a really big problem?
Yes, I do believe air pollution is a very
Okay,
big
so
problem.
I'm not really sure if you're aware of this, but Lomborg in USA Today magazine stated in 2014 that 3 billion people worldwide inside their homes to cook or keep warm burn dung, cardboards, twigs, etc. to do these things. The indoor air pollution that arises out of this actually kills about 3.5 million people each year, statistically making it the most deadly environmental issue at hand right now. So I understand that you are very concerned about environmental issues. So how do you suggest we address this problem without first prioritizing the economy?
Well, I don't believe that it's relevant to bring up how other people are burning ding and such for this. All we're saying is that in China, it is a very acute example of how air pollution has very adverse effects on its inhabitants. So I don't think that your statement is very relevant to this.
I think it's relevant because if you are trying to address environmental issues as a whole, and this is the most deadly, and if it cannot be solved in an economic manner, I don't understand how it doesn't take precedent over the air pollution in China.
I did not say that this was the deadliest.
No, the indoor air pollution is the deadliest.
Okay. So sorry, what was the question?
So my question is, how do you think that this can be addressed if you don't prioritize the economy?
Well, I mean, this isn't a policy debate. This is about values, and I believe that environmental concern in the long run, even if, I think that it's horrible that people are having to go through this in order to just survive, but at the same time, if we keep on burning fossil fuels, people are going to live in a much worse state, and China is a perfect example of how people living in a society where they're burning coal like no other causes air apocalypse. It causes so many dangers to society as well.
Okay, so you also stated that environmental concerns are affecting the world at a global scale, and you cited the explosion of the Deepwater Horizon oil rig as evidence of this claim. Can you explain why this occurrence relates to the topic of our debate of economic growth and environmental concerns?
Yes, because I believe that oil is one of the major pieces that actually fuels economic growth. I mean, economic